One of the biggest things that quilters tell me that they struggle with is the 1/4 inch seam. So in quilting, we sew 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric, and that is the standard that is used to create these complicated geometric blocks. But if your seam allowance isn't a 1/4 inch, then you may struggle with getting your pieces to line up. And it's especially difficult when you are creating really complicated blocks like this one, where all the 1/4 inch seams need to be very accurate in order for all of these small pieces to line up properly to create the block. I'm going to give you a few tips on how I make sure my 1/4 inch seams are accurate. The first thing that you will want to do is measure your seam allowance. So I have my seam allowance here. So I have sewn this line. It may be a little bit hard to see because of the color. And I can take my ruler, and this yellow line is my 1/4 inch, and I can place that yellow line on top of my gray thread to see if the edge of my fabric is lining up with that seam. So that is one way to test and see. I also have this measuring gauge. It has all these handy little measurements that I can use. And here's my 1/4 inch, and I can place that here, and I can see that there's my thread, there's the edge of my fabric, and there's a 1/4 inch between them. So that's the first thing that you want to do. You want to measure and make sure that you are sewing a 1/4 inch. Now, you don't want to have to sew your lines and then constantly measure to make sure your 1/4 inch seam is accurate. That will require a lot of seam ripping. So here are a few things I do to ensure that my 1/4 inch seam stays consistent. The main thing that I do is I purchased a 1/4 inch foot. So most sewing machines come with a foot like this. That's just a standard foot, and it's a little bit bigger and chunkier. It allows you to move the needle back and forth, and it doesn't give you the 1/4 inch spot. So you can see that if my needle is here in the center, this foot is way more than a 1/4 inch, because there's my 1/4 inch right there where this little purple line is. So what I've done is I've purchased a 1/4 inch seam foot. Now I have two different machines. I have a Bernina and I have a Brother. And so this is the foot for the Brother machine. So you can see right here, that right there, from this line where my needle is going through to the edge is a 1/4 inch. So when I go to sew my pieces, my needle is sewing along this line, and I can line up the edge of my fabric with the edge of this, and that's where I will make sure that I'm getting my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, this can be a little bit of a struggle for some quilters because there's nothing really keeping my fabric from shifting. I have to constantly pay attention and make sure my fabric stays along that edge. Now with my Bernina, I have this foot that has this little guide on it, and that holds the fabric. So as I'm stitching, this keeps my fabric from shifting. Like you can see, I can't press it over because that's stopping the fabric. So if there's a foot for your machine that has a little guide, this is such a time saver and has really helped with the accuracy of my piecing. Having a good 1/4 inch seam does come with practice, but the tools, they help. So having this guide helps me keep that accurate. Now, if you can't find a foot with a guide, you can do a couple of things. I've seen some quilters use washi tape. So this is just kind of a papery type of tape. It's just a little bit thicker, and they put this along the edge of where their 1/4 inch goes. And it's not much, but it's just enough to kind of help hold that fabric in place as they're sewing. I also have seen where some people, there are magnetic guides that will stick to the side of your machine or stick to the throat plate, and they will hold your fabric in place. I've actually seen where some people have taken small Legos, and those really thin Legos, and they've attached the Legos next to their foot, and that has helped hold it in place. So there are a lot of great tools out there that help you with your 1/4 inch seam. But I would say the first thing you want to do is look for a 1/4 inch seam foot for your machine manufacturer, because that at least gets you started with a guide. But also just double check and make sure that your seams, even after you purchase this foot, you do want to double check and measure those seams and make sure they're coming out to be a 1/4 inch when you're sewing. So those are my tips on how to create a 1/4 inch seam. I hope you found these helpful. If you have any additional tips, please share them in the comments so that others can see some ideas and maybe they'll find just the thing that works for them. So that is how I get accurate 1/4 inch seams. Practice with them, measure to make sure your seams are accurate so you know where your fabric needs to be on your machine. Use these tools to help with the accuracy, and in no time you will be piecing perfect blocks with beautiful seams.